having the creator speak creation out of his breath, and all of creation is created. I don't have to figure that all out. I'm not that smart, but where the creator says, let's make man in our image. And there's plurality there. There's God's speaking to himself, but it sounds like there's more than just me by myself. There's more to that conversation. There's more parts to that. And so he makes man in our image, and then separates man to bring woman, take a part of man out, and so that the man and the woman is representation of the image bearers of God. We are fearfully and wonderfully made. We have three parts to us, kind of like the creator, where you have this spiritual part, this father figure, and this human part, and how he's not left us as orphans, but he's made us with a spirit so that we can actually connect to him. And so whatever I use him, your concept could be a little bit different. And so we have this concept within us that all work together as one. And so I have a spirit, I have a soul, I have a body. And so my physical body can really tell a whole lot about my condition inside. And so if we don't acknowledge that we have a spirit, most of the medical profession would not acknowledge that. So we try to medicate the physical symptoms of a spiritual problem. And so when I look at that spiritual problem, the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous sums it up as irritable, restless, and discontent. And so before I drank alcohol, I had that within me. And I can describe that problem as, my real problem is what alcohol and drugs relieve me of. I have that experience of being relieved of this inner tension inside of me, this desire to be a good boy, to this desire to fit in, this desire to know that I belong with you, that we deserve to breathe the same air. I had this tension inside of me of trying to prove myself, and this fear of I was going to be punished because I'm always going to do something bad. All of that tension was in me, and alcohol, as soon as I touched it to my lips, boy, that relieved me of that problem. So this is where we're starting to see this spiritual problem. So my physical body will actually be like, I kind of look at the physical body as kind of the dash lights of my lights on my dashboard. They're warning symbols. And so sometimes it will tell me that there's an inward problem of anxiety. And then I can go into my physical body and really try to troubleshoot of what's really going on inside of me. And so when I look at the physical part of me, how does my physical part of me control my life? Well, you could look at a simple allergy. I don't really have allergies. I live, the other adult in my house I live with, she has lots of allergies to everything. And so allergy season can be really annoying. See, that's how self-centered I am. See, allergy season is annoying to me because I don't have allergies. Imagine being the person with the allergies, how annoying allergy season actually is. But I can tell. Sometimes me and Vicky will be talking or we'll be doing a video or something, and all of a sudden she starts sneezing. She cannot, even though that we're doing a public presentation, we're doing a morning devotional, and she'll start sneezing like 5 times. And it's like, her body is in control and running the show. The body's not great at running the show at any level. I remember once we were in a Mexican restaurant, and she doesn't like cilantro, and she has peanut allergies. So it's not that she can't eat cilantro, she just doesn't like it. She has an aversion. So I think the taste tastes like soap to her. And so sometimes she doesn't like that in her mouth, and so she spits it out. And so we're at this restaurant, and she's sitting across from me, and we're having a good lunch, and I could see her gag, and I'm like, no, nuh-uh, we're adults here. You don't have to gag. It's just a little bit of cilantro. And she gags again, and I'm like, no, stop this. And then she takes off, and she goes to the bathroom and comes back and pukes, and now her mouth is all itchy. And I'm like, that's a little extreme for cilantro. I bet there's peanuts. Her body could tell that there was peanuts. Her body reacted in a way to save her life. Her body reacted in a normal way to something that is an abnormal reaction inside of her, which actually caused her to throw up. That's a beautiful system that she has. So instead of dying, her body actually saves her. Great, awesome system. We find out that the mole sauce has peanuts in it, and you're like, why wouldn't you tell us that? Who's putting peanuts in the mole sauce? And that's how the body runs the show. So when I put alcohol in my body, I have this abnormal reaction, alcohol and drugs. I have this abnormal reaction that produces a craving for more. So when I drink beer number one, great idea. I'm thirsty. It's a hot day, and it quenches my thirst. Although it doesn't quench my thirst, it actually makes me more thirsty. And by the time I get to number 8, I'm way more thirsty than I was at number 1. And this isn't a normal reaction that people have. Imagine you had that reaction with coffee, how jacked up you'd be by 10 o'clock at night. It'd be like, I've had 10 coffees. I'm not okay. I can't sleep. Like that doesn't have, like, I would feel horrible for a person with a coffee addiction, because it would cause so much stress and anxiety inside of you due to the caffeine. But that's what happens. I have this physical issue inside of me that produces a craving for more that I have no power over. I have this illusion that I do have power over because, you know, in my my mid-teens, my late teens, my 20s, you know, I could stop. I could go like, I have to work the next day, or I have this event, or, you know, I have dinner at my parents'. And so there was some semblance of control with my body, but it got to the point that at some point I crossed a threshold where I really had no control. That's the basis of addiction, is it actually takes away your control. We're usually in the illusion that we can control it. So that's what it looks like when my body is in control. The other part that we have, so we have the body, and then we have the soul. This is what God's given us to, you know, think with, to have intellect, to have our emotions. This is really what I'm responsible over. The mind's a beautiful thing. This is where my problem actually lies in, is my mind. So I have this physical thing when I drink. If I never drink, then it's never really going to be a problem. Just like Vicky would actually tell people, like, I have a peanut allergy. I can't have any peanuts. Can you make sure that my food, my mole sauce has no peanuts? Thank you very much. You know, so she can avoid that so that her body doesn't have this abnormal reaction. And so that's great. But if she had a mental blank spot every time there could be peanuts around, maybe she's in the kitchen. I'm one of those guys, like, my go-to snack is the Costco big mixed nuts. I actually get the cashews. I buy the big cashews, and then I buy the mixed nuts, because in the mixed nuts there's not enough cashews. So I do my own mixed nuts with extra cashews. Just a little side tip. But there's the big peanut butter, and I have the crackers with the peanut butter. It's just a little snack. Imagine Vicky goes into the kitchen and she has a mental blank spot, and she's hungry, and she opens the cupboard, and there's the peanut butter and the beet crackers. Great idea. And so that's this mental obsession that weighs out every other thinking, every other thought, every other consequence, every other memory of, you know, consequence and craving and lack of control, all of those things. And she eats the peanut butter. That's what happens to me with alcohol and drugs. I have this mental blank spot, this mental obsession that outweighs every other thought. And so that can bring me back to the physical part, where my physical body is in control. So in my mind, I have my mind, my will, and my emotions. So my will is my thinking. That's the beautiful part that God has given us. The beautiful thing about my mind is that, you know, it's kind of like a calculator. It's a center of data and information. It sees and learns through other people. It sees and learns through experiences from you know, early being born into a family, and seeing culturally and my brain thinks of things and comes out with equations and belief systems, and therefore I do. And so what it says in my big book and page 23 is these observations. So these observations of the physical problem that I have with alcohol. And you fill in the blank. Some of you have food or porn or sex, adrenaline, whatever it may be. Mine is alcohol and drugs. So these observations would be academic and pointless if our friend never took the first drink. So if I didn't take the first hit, it wouldn't even be a problem, the physical problem. Therefore, setting the terrible cycle in motion. Therefore, the main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind rather than his body. So I always, to simplify it, once I start, I can't stop, and then once I stop and have the consequences, I keep on starting. And so that's my mind in control. I know that in my experience that God cleans that up, that God restores that, God puts in position the natural order of where my mind should be, because my mind is the thing that can really complicate things. And so that's the second part of me. And then the final part of me that God has designed us to be is in communion and relationship with him. So he has designed us with a spirit so that we can live spirit to spirit by God and have his power. And so I come into this world with that broken connection. We look at the kind of contrast of addiction is really connection. So connection to community, connection to each other, and connection to God ultimately. So we are born disconnected right from the beginning. And we're trying to get our basic needs met through our physical and through our mental capacities. The need for comfort and nurture and prestige, all of those things, those God-given desires that he has given us. We try separate from him to get those needs met. And so what I've come to understand is how I've been fearfully and wonderfully made is to get all of those needs met by God. So in the book, again, on page 25, it says there is a solution. So that gives me hope that there is a solution. And the hope being that if the problem centers in my mind and my body, that means I don't need the rest of the world to be okay. I don't need everything else to go my way for me to be okay. If the problem is inside of me, then that gives me great hope because I can't control the outside. There is so little control of the outside circumstances that I can actually maintain. It's actually hopeless. So when I come to understand that the problem is within me, and that there is a solution, that gives me great hope. That is our hope, that the problem is within me. So almost none of us like self-searching and leveling of our pride. The confession of our shortcomings, which is the process required for its successful consummation, but we saw that it really worked in others, and we had come to believe in the hopelessness and futility of life as we've been living. When, therefore, we were approached by those in whom the problem had been solved, there was nothing left for us to do but pick up a simple kit of spiritual tools laid at our feet. We found much of heaven, and we were rocketed into the fourth dimension of existence, of which we had not even dreamed. The great fact is just this and nothing less, that we have had a deep effective spiritual experiences which have revolutionized our whole attitude towards life, toward our fellows, towards God's universe. The central fact of our lives today is the absolute certainty that our Creator has entered into our hearts and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. He has commenced to accomplish those things for us which we could never do for ourselves. So my whole life, I have been trying to fix my problem, this irritable, restless, discontent, this inner turmoil and tension within me. I've been trying to solve that problem and I can't do it. And I get to the point where the way that I am trying to do it, the way I'm trying to soothe myself, the way I'm trying to get my needs met, stops working. I think for a lot of us, rock bottom isn't the thing. Like my rock bottom changed like so many times. Like I remember there were some rock bottoms that I thought that I would never happen to me, and then next thing you know, um, my parents are picking me up in a prison in a different town, an hour outside of Ottawa, because we got into some trouble. And I remember my mom giving me a little card, my Nana. She gives me cards with Bible verses. And she goes, "This is probably as low as your life will ever get." And I just remember her like her with her compassion as a mother pleading for her child's life, like just make some different choices. There's a whole life that's so much better than what's happening to you. And I just remember I remember that card, and things got lower and lower and lower, and it's like the lowest that I've ever been. And this is, and maybe you can relate to me, is that the things that I was trying to solve my problem with stopped working. They actually stopped working, and I actually came into the realization that I have no control over anything in my life. I want to go out and get a pack of smokes, and I come back 3 days later. That's not a I don't want to live like that. And I come to realize that me trying to solve this problem inside of me, this is the way I've been designed. And the beautiful thing is that we have a God that's never left us. He's always been watching me. He's always been there. He's walked me through it. There's a reason that I'm still alive today, and that he was always there. I just wasn't connected to him. And so this program of action, going through LifeLab or whatever 12-step program that you've been in, is really gets us unblocked. It really shows us what's blocking us, and that's ultimately fear. So the opposite of love, I think, is fear. Where God's perfect love is, fear is cast out, and that's how we are made. We are made separated from God at the beginning, and full of fear and tension. And the whole point of that is to lead us into a relationship that can restore and push out that fear, so that we can be agents of God's love and tolerance of other people. We see this in the big book a little bit on page 27, where this famous doctor, this psychologist, is working with a guy, and he can't stay sober, and he's got all the money and the resources in the world, and he goes out to see him, and then he gets drunk on the way home, and it's like this hopeless case. And the doctor says, Carl Jung says, "I've never seen anybody recover. There is no methodology that the biggest brains in psychology can come up with for you people to recover." And he goes, "The only thing that I've seen that works is a vital spiritual experience. To me, these occurrences are a phenomenon. They appear to be in nature a huge emotional displacements and rearrangements, ideas, emotions, and attitudes, which were once the guiding force of these lives of men, are suddenly cast to one side, and a complete new set of conceptions and motives begin to dominate them." And that's the hope, is that only the power of God can separate me from drugs and alcohol, or fill in the blank for you, and replace all of my thinking, all of my belief systems, all of my motivations, all of that stuff. He can actually cast out everything that alcohol and drugs built, and he builds a whole new building. I love that concept. We might come in surrendered because there's no other choice, but the reality of recovery, the reality of a relationship with God, is to abandon our lives. In the big book, it doesn't ever really talk about surrender. It talks about abandonment. And I have to abandon everything I think I know about everything, and just come into a place of receiving and going through a process to get the junk out of my heart and give that to the altar of God, and have this vital spiritual experience. That's my experience as well. When I was in early recovery, I went to this conference with dudes, and it was a bit uncomfortable. And a couple people shared some stuff, and the guy read out of the Bible, and then he just said, he made an invitation. Do you want to, anybody that wants an experience with God or wants healing, please stand up. So I stood up, and I was like, oh, why am I standing up? And then the worst thing that happened is like all these dudes started touching me and praying for me, like put hands on me. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So I just shut my eyes and I had this spiritual experience where I saw a movie in my head about my mom and my dad. My dad was a pastor, and their service let up, and this lady comes over to my mom, and the lady says, "Is that your son?" And my mom had never seen this lady before and never saw her again. And my mom said, "Yeah." And the lady says, "He's going to be okay." And at that moment, I heard the love of God say that you're okay. That's really my whole life. All I wanted the world to say of me is that you're okay. And now I have the creator of the universe filling me with his love and his words of affirmation. So simple, that you're okay. And it was the first time I actually believed that. And then I was filled with this electricity. Like all I can describe it is liquid love. I'd never known what love is until I felt it. I had this experience, this vital experience. And I got to sit down and I had snotsicles and my eyes, I'm doing that man cry, like I can't really breathe, and it's horrible. And I'm just so filled with, I have no clue what's going on. And then the pastor goes, "Okay, we're just going to leave the floor open to God." And people started speaking. Somebody right behind me said, "God wants somebody to know in this room that's been fighting alcohol their whole lives that you're okay." And I just exploded I had to get out of the room. And that to me, my friends, is a vital spiritual experience. That doesn't happen to me all the time, but it gave me enough belief, because in step 2, it says we come to believe. We come to believe in the power of God. And so God's going to reveal himself in little circumstances and situations and in little visions, and maybe in some of your dreams or with other people or through an animal even. It's an incredible thing that God will actually reveal himself in a way that I can accept it and the way that you can accept it. And so that's really how we're made, is to operate out of the spirit of out of God's spirit, which is the ultimate spirit of love. I only know that because I was filled with his love. I connect to his love. The interesting thing is really knowing how I am made is that my heart wants to be independent from God and play God on a daily basis. So knowing that, it's like I have to plug in my phone every night. I know how my phone is made at some level, and I know that to power it, it needs to be plugged in every night. I don't need to understand everything about me, but I need to understand that I need to be powered up on a daily basis with God. So through prayer, meditation, through spiritual practices and principles in my life, that I have to start my day plugging in. Like I unplug my phone and I plug myself in. And if I stop doing that, the farther and farther away I get and the more miserable I get. I might be helping people, but I'm just helping them out of my power. So that's how I believe that we're designed and made to be able to connect to God, and have a relationship and be powered by his spirit of love, be comforted by him, given joy by him, given purpose and meaning and definition, provisions, and we stay in the inside of that circle. Maybe some of you guys recognize that from LifeLab, is that our goal is to stay on the inside of the circle with God, let him figure out my life on the outside. And in the inside, there's a beautiful relationship that is available for everyone. So that is how I feel like we're made, and we're made spirit, soul, and body, and to live out of our spirit. So